Welcome to the deep dive. You know, in this world just overflowing with information, it's so easy to feel a bit lost, right?
Absolutely. Information overload is real.
Exactly. So our goal here is to cut through all that noise. We sift through your sources, find those potent insights, the ones that really empower you.
Giving you a direct path to some profound knowledge.
Yeah, and often from places you might not expect.
And today, that's precisely what we're aiming for. We're diving deep into some really rich material. It's a spiritual work of Ramatís and Vovó Maria Conga, channeled through Norberto Peixoto. We're focusing particularly on their book, Evolução no Planeta Azul.
Which translates to Evolution on the Blue Planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, think of this as an exploration of some really advanced insights for conscious advancement.
Definitely.
Yeah.
We're going to unpack two spiritual practices that are quite interconnected. Umbanda and Apometria.
As they're revealed by these, well, profound entities.
Right. And the mission. It's really to understand how they can be practically applied for spiritual evolution, for healing.
And I think you're going to find some genuinely surprising facts and insights here, things that are actionable that might really shift your perspective a bit.
It's about seeing these sophisticated spiritual systems, not just as abstract ideas, but as tangible pathways.
Pathways to growth, to holistic well-being. Okay, let's start. Part 1, the cosmic tapestry Ramatís and the Great White Fraternity.
Ramatís, described as an ancient master. His biography alone is captivating.
It really is. His last incarnation apparently was in 10th century Indochina, born to a Hindu tapestry weaver and a Chinese Vestal.
Quite an origin, and he wasn't just anyone. He was a highly intelligent instructor in an initiatic sanctuary in India. Disincarnated quite young in that life, actually.
Wow.
But what's really interesting is his connection to the 4th century Aryan cycle, the one that inspired the Ramayana.
Yeah, epic Hindu poem, yeah.
His name even reflects it, Ramatís. It symbolizes that union of masculine and feminine principles. It's foundational stuff from the Vedas, the Upanishads, things he built upon.
That's such a deep lineage. And then there's this connection that just, well, makes you stop and think.
You mean with Allan Kardec?
Exactly. Ramatís apparently encountered the spirit who would later become Kardec, first in Atlantis.
Where Kardec was focused on positive sciences, apparently.
Right, and then again in ancient Egypt, where he was the priest Amenophis, serving Pharaoh Merneptah. What does that suggest, these repeated encounters?
Well, it really speaks to the intricate web of spiritual evolution, doesn't it? And karmic ties.
Yeah.
These aren't just random meetings. It highlights how these foundational figures in spiritual movements often have these long, intertwined histories across lifetimes.
Laying groundwork across different eras.
Precisely. It suggests our spiritual journeys are way more interconnected, more long-reaching than we usually imagine.
Which kind of leads us into this idea of the global spiritual convergence. Ramatís co-founded this organization, the Fraternity of the Cross and the Triangle. That sounds pretty significant.
But it was far from casual. It started in the East last century as a very deliberate fusion.
A fusion of what exactly?
Two major spiritual fraternities. You had the Western Fraternity of the Cross, focused on disseminating Jesus's teachings.
Okay.
And the Eastern Fraternity of the Triangle, which was deeply rooted in the initiatic traditions of the Orient.
And they brought these together.
Yes, and their symbols show it. A luminous lilac triangle framing a lily cross. It perfectly represents that blend, Eastern mysticism and Jesus' sacrificial path.
So what did this mean practically for global spiritual evolution?
Well, the whole idea was to foster spiritual exchange.
Yeah.
Like on a global scale.
How so?
You started seeing Eastern mentors assisting in the West, even guiding spiritist mediumship work, and vice versa. Western instructors began operating in places like India, Egypt, China.
So it wasn't just sharing knowledge.
No, it was deeper, promoting real fraternity. It even led to planned reincarnations for what they called friend spirits, strategically placing them where they could contribute most.
Like some of Ramatís' disciples coming to Brazil.
Exactly. Preparing the ground, as the source puts it, for the generous humanity of the 3rd millennium.
It sounds like a very conscious, deliberate cross-pollination of spiritual energies.
It does, and it's fascinating how the sources contrast the approaches, right? The lunar meditative Orientals versus the dynamic solar Westerners.
Yeah, how does fusing those benefit global evolution?
It creates a more balanced path, a more holistic one. Orientals bring that deep inner wisdom, that focus on consciousness, They're often less interested in, say, external phenomena.
Right.
Westerners, on the other hand, bring that objective study, the focus on the spirit world, on transient forms. They bring practical application, outward action.
So the synergy.
The synergy allows for a more complete spiritual development. You get profound inner understanding and dynamic external manifestation, which is arguably what's needed for humanity's next phase.
Ramatis's teachings definitely cover a lot of ground. Bold topics like black magic, ETs, mediumship. Very appealing to universalist minds, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. And for those with clairvoyance, his appearance is described as very distinct, almost exotic.
What does that tell us about how these entities communicate?
Well, it highlights how they often manifest in ways that are deeply symbolic, culturally resonant. It's not just for recognition, it conveys meaning.
So how is he described?
As an exotic 10th century Indochinese master. He wears this translucent white silk cloak over a tunic, an emerald belt, and a turban with these colorful cords.
Cords?
Yeah, and they're not just decoration. They're ancient insignias representing initiatic activities. Each color means something specific. Crimson for love, yellow for will, green for wisdom, goo for religiosity, and white for reincarnatory freedom.
Wow, so the imagery itself is a kind of language.
Exactly, it's like a visual lexicon.
Yeah.
Practitioners can intuitively grasp the essence of his teachings, the energies he represents, even without consciously decoding every symbol.
That adds a whole other layer. Okay, let's shift gears. Part 2, Umbanda, a dynamic, evolving path. We meet Vovó Maria Conga here, described as an extraterrestrial entity presenting in Umbanda.
Yes. And she brings this important perspective on Umbanda itself. You know, some might see Umbanda as, well, unfinished.
Because it doesn't have that rigid codification like some other religions?
Precisely. But Vovó Maria Conga, and the sources generally, argue that this dynamism is actually its core strength.
How so?
Unlike rigid dogmas, which can, shackle evolution by resisting new insights, Umbanda's fluidity lets it adapt. It can expand.
So how does that adaptability empower people differently, maybe, than a more rigid path?
That's a great point. I think it means Umbanda can respond directly to humanity's evolving needs. It offers tools, insights that stay relevant, instead of being stuck in old interpretations.
It allows for a more personal journey, maybe, where direct experience counts more than just following doctrine.
Exactly. And you see this evolution in its phases. It's moving, apparently, from the Ogam phase, which was about attracting people, dealing with life's practical demands, towards the Oxasi phase in this third millennium. And that phase emphasizes doctrinal clarification, unification, guided from the astral superior.
So even the path itself matures, refines its purpose over time, guided from above.
That's the idea. And Umbanda's birth in Brazil, it's directly tied to the country's collective karma.
A spiritual melting pot, wasn't it? Spirits linked to the Inquisition?
Yeah, think about that. Former inquisitors reincarnated as slaves, their victims as owners, plus indigenous populations, African rights, European spiritism, all converging.
That's incredibly intense history to process in one place.
It is. And the sources say Umbanda was carefully planned by an Alta Confraria Branca, a high white confraternity in the astral superior.
Like a council of high-level spiritual masters?
Pretty much, yeah. Operating with Jesus' direct permission, the sources state their mission was huge. Harmonize all these diverse spiritual streams and, crucially, cleanse the negative karma from centuries of religious intolerance and persecution.
A conscious, multidimensional spiritual intervention.
Exactly, a massive undertaking.
Okay, let's get into some specifics. What is Mironga de Preta Velha?
Right, Mironga is an Umbanda word, basically means mystery or secret.
Yep.
Mironga de Preta Velha refers to a type of anonymous white magic used for healing.
And Preta Velha.
Those are wise ancestral spirits in Umbanda, often appear as old black women or men, embodying humility, wisdom. Their Mironga uses elemental energies, earth, air, fire, water, and nature spirits, like gnomes and sylphs.
And the key is the anonymity.
Absolutely. It's done with deep humility. The healers don't seek credit. It's pure, selfless service focused entirely on healing.
And speaking of those who serve, guides and protectors in Umbanda, can you clarify their roles, their relationship with the mediums?
Sure. Guides and protectors, they're evolving spirits just like us, but without the physical body for now. Their connection to their mediums, often deeply tied by past lives.
Yeah.
Protectors usually need more frequent incorporation, and they tend to evolve right alongside their medium. It's often a deep, long-term commitment.
And
Guides might not need to reincarnate compulsorily, but they're evolving too. They link up with mediums for specific tasks, often with ancestral connections as well. Both act as conduits for healing, for wisdom.
Now, here's something I've wondered. Why do some high-tier entities, when incorporated, speak in what might seem like a rough or tribal way? It seems counterintuitive for advanced spirit.
That's a common question. The sources explain it's purely about effective communication. Accessibility. These entities deliberately choose that style to be understood by the consulters, the people seeking help, who are often simple folks, maybe unlettered, from all sorts of backgrounds.
So it's about meeting them where they are.
Exactly. They have limited time during incorporation, and they're operating in a lower vibratory environment. Direct, immediately understandable language is just more effective than being eloquent in that context. It doesn't mean they can't speak articulately. It's a conscious choice for that specific interaction.
That makes a lot of sense. It clears up a big misconception. Okay, let's tackle another controversial one. Exus. So many distorted ideas float around. What's their true role in Umbanda?
Oh yeah, this is a big one. Lots of confusion here. Even the word exu has different origin theories. Some say it's ancient, meaning opposite side, linked to Lemuria. Others suggest Yershu, a banished Indian prince, or African words for sphere, or even Hebrew exude for banished peoples.
So diverse origins. But the key thing is the popular perception versus the Umbanda reality, right?
Absolutely crucial.
Yeah.
The popular idea often paints exu as malevolent, linked to black magic.
Yeah.
But the true Umbanda exus, they have a completely different and essential function within the serious Umbanda hierarchy.
So definitely not malevolent or dangerous in Umbanda itself.
Not in true serious Umbanda, no. Their role is fundamentally about security, organization, discipline. They operate under the command of higher entities like the Preto Velos and Caboclos we mentioned.
Like cosmic guardians or operational managers.
That's a good way to put it. And even more profoundly, they act as exhaust fans.
Exhaust fans? How?
They protect the mediums from really harmful, deleterious vibrations encountered during rescue missions. These missions often take place in the dense umbral inferior. Think of it as a lower astral realm where suffering, disoriented spirits often reside.
So they shield the medium.
Yes. The sources are explicit. Working with true Umbanda exus isn't dangerous. The real danger always comes from one's own internal imbalances, one's own thoughts and tendencies. The exus's work is actually about restoring cosmic balance, often by dismantling negative operations and protecting free will.
That's a huge clarification. It totally reframes them. They're more like agents of spiritual justice and protection.
Precisely. Operating on the front lines of karmic cleanup, you could say. Ensuring balance, mitigating the fallout from distorted actions.
Okay, moving into part 3 now. We're going deeper into Apometria. This sounds like a seriously powerful healing technique. How does it actually work at its core?
Apometria's main technique involves the desdobramento of mediums. That translates roughly as dissociation or astral projection. This process basically turns them into incredibly valuable instruments for healing. Through their conscious intent, their mental focus, what's called the volitional act, the medium generates a lot of animal energy.
Animal energy?
Yes, it's a type of vital energy. And this energy is then directed to help suffering beings, both incarnated people and disincarnated spirits.
And when clairvoyant mediums are dissociated, what happens that enables the healing?
Well, when they're in that state, they create a powerful mental egregor with the others in the healing group.
A collective mental field.
Exactly. And this collective field significantly boosts their ability to manipulate energies. It allows for really precise diagnoses, even astral surgeries, and deep energetic cures.
But it's not meant to replace spirit-led cures.
No, the sources are clear on that. It's a powerful tool. It actually propels practitioners towards greater humility and collaboration. It fosters a sense of shared purpose, not individual ego. It's very much a collective effort.
That makes sense. Let's dig into the power of the mind here and vibrations. The sources say the mind is the spirit's main instrument, moving cosmic forces. How does that work in an Apometria session?
Trained Apometria operators really leverage this. They can consciously create these powerful magnetic force fields, like pyramids, cylinders, spheres, but in the etheric and astral dimensions.
What are those fields used for?
They can be used to contain suffering spirits, gently, for re-education, or they can be used to thoroughly cleanse environments of negative energies.
And this connects to frequency.
Absolutely. It ties right into the idea that everything in the cosmos is frequency. Every person, every being has a unique vibratory tone.
Okay.
So the magnetic pulse counts used in Apometria, they act like tuning a radio dial. They let the medium precisely tune into and work with specific vibrational frequencies. This precision is vital for helping entities across a huge spectrum, from the lowest vibrations to much higher ones.
What's really fascinating is this idea of healing across time, past lives. How do mediums act as exhaust fans here, accessing this holographic monitor?
All right, so when a patient comes for help, and assuming their spiritual merit and their free will is respected, spiritual guides working with the Apometria team can access this, well, holographic monitor.
Like a complete record.
Kind of like a complete energetic record of the patient's entire karmic history, all past lives experiences. Then the mediums, acting as these sensitive exhaust fans, can actually capture and vicariously experience a traumatic knot from a past life that's still causing problems now.
They experience it.
Yes, in a controlled way. This allows for a powerful catharsis, a release. It effectively frees the patient from the present-day echoes, the repercussions of that old trauma. It's like clearing deep energetic blockages from way back.
That's incredible, but it brings up that question again, retaining obsessors. Isn't that interfering with free will?
The sources tackle this directly. They argue that retaining obsessor spirits causing intentional harm or attachment isn't really against free will in a negative way. It's seen as a merciful intervention.
Merciful how?
To prevent greater harm. Similar, they say, to how Jesus summarily cast out demons. The free will of the one causing harm is respected, but only up to the point where it starts causing significant unmerited suffering to others. It's about restoring cosmic balance, protecting the collective.
And what happens to the spirits then?
They aren't just trapped. They're guided towards healing, towards re-education. So ultimately, it's presented as an act of compassion for everyone involved.
Okay, let's look at black magic and mental illness through this apometric lens. How does the source connect them?
It suggests that black magic, whether from past lives or present actions, can create actual structural modifications in a person's mental house. It can lead to auto-obsessive disorders, often linked to very deep subconscious traumas.
Can you give an example?
Yeah, there's a compelling one about an enchanted husband. In this case, black magic was used to create an artificial thought form, like a sensual female construct designed specifically to cause harm in his life and relationship.
Wow, and how is that dealt with?
This is where the true Umbanda exorcists come in, as we discussed. Their role includes dismantling these kinds of operations. They restore cosmic balance and the person's free will by disintegrating these artificial constructs, cleansing those lower vibratory fields. It allows a person to reclaim their mental sovereignty.
So it's not just lifting a curse, it's about restoring the underlying energetic and mental balance. Fascinating. And finally, the magic of sound and dialymetry. Sounds and chants in Umbanda, pulse counts in Apometria, they're more than just ritual.
Oh, much more. They are profound energetic tools. These sounds, chants, counts, they're used very precisely to either elevate or diminish brain frequency. This helps create that powerful collective egregor, that shared mental field we talked about.
And that facilitates the work.
Yes, it facilitates the astral work and helps tune the mediums to specific Orixa vibrations, Orixás being those fundamental divine forces in Umbanda linked to nature's specific qualities. The sources actually state that the underlying principles of magnetic pulse, counts in Apometria, and the chanted points in Umbanda are identical in their magistical foundations. Both are highly sophisticated ways of manipulating energy.
And dialymetry, that sounds even more advanced.
It is. Described as an advanced healing technique often used by Oxosis caboclos. Caboclos, remember, are those spirits of indigenous origin in Umbanda known for nature wisdom.
Okay, so what do they do in dialymetry?
They use highly concentrated mental energy combined with ectoplasm, that subtle energetic substance, to actually loosen molecular cohesion in diseased etheric organs.
Loosen molecular cohesion, what does that mean practically?
It means they can essentially materialize and dematerialize physical cells at a subtle level. They can even implant healthy ectoplasmic processes like energetic molds into the etheric body.
And that promotes physical healing.
Directly.
Yeah.
The etheric body is the template for the physical. Nature spirits, like sylphs, apparently assist by intensifying the vibration of the area being worked on, facilitating this incredible process of energetic restructuring.
That's mind-bending, truly. Okay, let's bring this back to Earth a bit. Part 4. Real-world applications and connecting it back to you, our listener. Let's start with the case of MCRM. How did these practices help unravel her chronic illness?
Okay, MCRM. She was 47, a university student, suffering from intense pain back, lower abdomen, and a chronic kidney infection for over 20 years.
20 years, with no medical explanation.
None that worked. She had emotional overload, couldn't sleep well, constant PMS symptoms despite hormone therapy. Nothing conventional was catching it.
So what did the spiritual diagnosis uncover? What was really going on?
It revealed a past life as a gypsy sorceress. This meant she was improperly channeling healing energy in this life. But more critically, she was in a kind of symbiosis with a black mage, also a gypsy spirit, who's exploiting those past connections.
Exploiting her.
This entity had basically set up shop, made his residence in the etheric counterpart of her home. Especially since she worked there as a massotherapist and bioenergist that created an open path for this lower astral entity. It was a really complex energetic entanglement, rooted deep in her own spiritual history.
That sounds incredibly draining and confusing for her. So what intervention finally brought relief?
It had to be multifaceted. First, a gypsy protector, a benevolent spirit, worked on balancing her splenic and basic chakras. Those were identified as the source of the kidney infection and pain.
Okay.
Then an exo, one of the true Umbanda ones, removed a whole community of spirits from her home. They were all involved in sexual magic that had been draining her energy.
Wow.
What else? After that, a jungle caboclo, another type of Umbanda guide, took over. Helped her incorporate her own guides, a Preta Velio and a caboclo, who had long-standing commitments to help her but hadn't been able to connect properly.
And finally,
the group's incarnated director used a powerful apometric technique called despolarization of memory stimulus. This basically cut the root connection to the past trauma that was unconsciously fueling the present problems.
and the result for MCRM.
She reported feeling much, much better. Calmer, sleeping soundly for the first time in ages.
Yeah.
She also followed the advice given, found an Umbanda center to attend, started mediumistic education, read uplifting material. It really shows that holistic approach, tackling the spiritual and psychological roots for lasting change.
That's a powerful story. Let's look at another one. ORS, healing a troubled marriage. What was happening there?
This was a couple, ORS. The husband had this pathological jealousy, like completely unfounded, constantly accusing his wife.
Oh dear.
And at the same time, the wife, when she reached a specific age that mirrored a past traumatic event, started re-experiencing that trauma. This was just escalating the conflict between them.
So what was the spiritual root cause?
It turned out they were past life enemies who had actually reincarnated as a married couple.
Enemies.
Yeah. And the wife's trauma came from a really difficult medieval disincarnation where she suffered terribly. This unresolved trauma was creating an energetic pocket of suffering spirits around her in the present.
Which was feeding the husband's jealousy.
Exactly, and the overall discord. That resonance from her past was pushing them both towards severe mental instability.
So how did Apometria help restore balance there?
By directly addressing those past life links and the present energy imbalances. The intervention helped cut the ties to that medieval trauma. This released the suffering spirits that were influencing the situation.
And allowed them to move forward.
Yes, it allowed them to reestablish their relationship on a completely new, much healthier footing, free from all that historical energetic baggage. The outcome reported was joyful. They were even planning for another child. It's a real testament to resolving these deep karmic knots.
These cases really drive home the practical power of this knowledge, don't they? And this is where we want to connect it back to you, the listener.
Absolutely. These deep dives into Umbanda, into Apometria, they offer such profound insights into the multidimensional nature of reality, how interconnected our past and present lives truly are.
And the immense potential for deep healing, for spiritual growth that lies beyond just the physical.
Exactly. This knowledge isn't just, intellectually interesting.
Right.
It's a pathway, a way to understand the complex challenges you might be facing in your own life. And crucially, to find holistic solutions that go way beyond just surface symptoms.
It shows us there are these deeper currents moving in our lives, guiding us, if you learn to read them, towards greater understanding, greater well-being.
It encourages a much broader, more integrated view of ourselves, doesn't it? Acknowledging the spiritual dimensions that are always part of our existence.
What an incredible journey we've taken today. Seriously. We started with Ramatís, that cosmic tapestry, his ancient life, the surprising links to Allan Kardec, the global spiritual convergence he helped foster.
The Fraternity of the Cross and the Triangle.
Exactly. Then we journeyed into Umbanda, its dynamic, evolving nature, its strengths, its roots in Brazil, and importantly, busting some myths about its practices and entities like the
Just
Exus.
defying them, yeah.
And finally, plunging into Apometria's powerful healing, seeing how it works across dimensions, across time, tackling things like black magic, chronic illness with these amazing techniques like dialimetry.
What we keep seeing is that these seemingly complex topics all point to a deeper, interconnected reality,
Right.
one that's constantly in motion, always inviting us to look beyond the obvious surface of things.
Yes, the sources consistently show us, as you said earlier, that everything in the cosmos is frequency. And our own individual stories, they're part of this much larger ongoing spiritual evolution.
The wisdom shared by Ramatís, by Vovó Maria Conga, through Norberto Pessoa, it really gives us new lenses, new ways to view our own struggles, our triumphs, emphasizing that understanding the energetic roots can unlock profound healing.
So here's the final thought to leave you with. If our deepest issues often stem from these knots in our eternal memory, these karmic imprints rippling through time, impacting our present, what might your unconscious be holding on to? What echoes from the past might be affecting your life right now?
And how could embracing these diverse streams of spiritual wisdom, understanding that core principles like love, tolerance, universalism are the real cosmic fuel, how could that truly transform your present reality and your future path?
We really encourage you to reflect on those principles: love, tolerance, universalism.
Perhaps your own path to deeper understanding, to healing, lies in exploring some of these multidimensional insights, recognizing those profound connections between your inner world and the greater cosmic forces always at play.